So, Sunday again, which means coffee, and this week, let's nail it and screw it.
Oh yes, please. I take two and more than golden two. I'm wanting to. Oh yes, please.
Remember, we're talking about nails and screws, nothing else. Now, when to choose nails versus screws? Let's start with nails. You can separate nails in two categories, I would say. Round ones, let's see if this picks up, and square ones. I don't know, you probably don't gonna see the difference, but this is a round one and this is a square one. And in my opinion, round screws like this should always be used when you're attaching, or only be used, that would be the right word, only be used when you're attaching a membrane of sorts. A wrapping for the house, during the wind from entering through the walls, or would it be attaching shingles, for instance? Then I would use a round nail. And the reason for this is because a round nail, when it enters the wood, is just creating a perfectly round hole, and then as soon as the material is starting to move, it's starting to wiggle the screw, and the hole gets big, and the screw is starting to wander up a bit in the wood. However, if you attach a round screw with a membrane of sorts, it will coat, shall we say. When you attach it with a membrane, that little extra membrane just helps to hold the nail in place, and preventing it from kind of wandering up. And that's where only point I use round nails is when I attaching a membrane. Now, for square nails, these creates kind of more of a uncertain, the hole is not uniformed all the way through, because with the square nail it's just creating a cavity that's a bit more jagged. But also hammering in a nail, it kind of bends a bit every time, and every time you hammer it, it kind of bends just a bit, and the square nail will just hold better in a hole when it gets deformed, slightly deformed. As I said, once again, these are all exaggerated movements and so forth, but when it gets bent a bit, it just stays better in the hole and doesn't wander up back with movement in the wood. That's the general separation, I would say. However, maybe not, how to choose the length of your nails when you're attaching materials. How do you do that, actually? And I would say a rule of thumb to be on the lower end, the material that you fasten, say that you're fastening a board to a stud, you take the width or the thickness of the board times 2.5, or if you want to be really sure, times 3, for easy measurement, that if a board is 1 centimeter thick, the nail should then be at least 2.5 centimeters up to 3 centimeters to attach the material correctly. However, also make sure that the nails are not so long that they're starting to protrude on the other side, or just stopping short of it, because then with the shrinkage of the wood or movement of the wood, that will eventually just penetrate through the very end of it. So make sure that if you pass the halfway mark, no more than 2/3 of the halfway mark, I would say, is the maximum. But generally speaking, the length of the nail should be 2.5 times up to 3 times the length of the thinnest material that you're attaching to the wood, or attaching together. Make sense? I think so. That's just basic ruling. Now, when it comes to screws, here again we have two kind of separations of screws and when to use them. But let's talk about the separation first. You either have a fully threaded screw, which means from the tip of the screw to the very back head of the screw, it's all, you have threads in this case, yes. And wooden screws, I'm not sure everybody aware of it, but wooden screws always have a bit of more of a wing to it to grip in the wood, so more flare on the screw threads itself than a machine screw, which makes it just grip more in the wood. And the other side of the screw from being the full threaded one is the shafted screw. And when I talk about the shaft, this is the part that are not threaded, that is shafted. And why is a screw shafted? Well, basically, the reason for having a shafted screw is that, say that this would be the material that you're fastening. This is the thickness of the material that you're fastening into something else. And so say that this would be the thickness of your wood that you're attaching to something. The purpose of this being shafted is that it will not grip in the wood, and it will just spin in the wood itself, while the tip of itself is, as you can see, is a bit thicker. So when that goes in through the wood, it's pulling the wood towards the piece that you're attaching it to. If this would be like this, shafted or not shafted and having full thread, when these two materials meet and you don't have this shaft part, when the materials meet and they're not completely sealed against each other, they're gonna start separate instead of going closer, since you have the thread working itself the other way. So always make sure, if you're attaching a wood to another piece of wood, that you have a shafted screw head or shafted screw, or that you pre-drill your material that you're attaching to another material, the upper part, so to say, that if you're attaching this part to this part needs to be pre-drilled for the screw, for not having that effect when they starting to close and the last bit they just push apart instead of pushing closer. And the size of the drill should be what you have the center shaft of the screw, not taking in count with the thread itself. So just the center shaft of the screw, that's the diameter of the drill you need to pre-drill on your transplant wood, so to speak, that you attach to another piece of wood. It has more grip in this piece of the wood, so that's the purpose of pre-drilling. Also, I like to go back to nails actually. Another rule of thumb when it comes to nails, no matter the size I would say, is never put a nail more than 5 centimeters from the end wood of a piece of wood. Let me get a piece of wood. We are back. So what I'm saying is, never put a nail from the top of the end wood closer than 5 centimeters or 2 inches from the end wood. And why you're doing this is to prevent the wood from splitting. And this is not so sensitive when it comes to the thicker woods, but when you're starting to talk about trimmings around windows and doors, if you attach a nail too close to the end wood where the board or trimming is cut, it will 100% crack from the nail up and a bit further down. So in this case, if you really need to put it further up than 5 centimeters or 2 inches, you can also pre-drill for the nails. Or you may pre-drill to make sure that it doesn't crack, or you can just take off the very tip of the nail, which is like a wedge, right? Or a point. If you just cut it off, like so, like so, so it becomes blunt in the end, it will mean that instead of splitting the fibers with a point, instead of splitting the fibers when you have a blunt one, you crushing the fibers down in the wood, which means the board will not split in that way, because this is now directly crushing the fibers and not splitting them. And of course, this is more true when it comes to smaller or thinner boards or trimmings of some sort. But as soon as you cut the tip off the nail, you automatically can move it up from the 5 inches or 5 centimeters, 2 inches, to a very close to the end hole if you want to. Please try it out. It's a really good tip, actually. A few minutes later. Most of the cases when you use a fully threaded screw is when you're attaching the plywood, gypsum, masonite or MDF or all those sorts of material. Then normally fully threaded screws works pretty well. How to explain, the more porous material, the better it is to have a fully threaded screw. So gypsum in that case would be a fully threaded screw. Also, sheets can be attached with nails. Just as I said, remember, nails have tendencies to wander out with weather, the wood shrinking and contracting, which gonna make the nails to wobble and sometimes walking out. Just keep that in mind. Oh, I think that's it for nails and screws. I think that's probably it from. So yeah, that's basic. So yeah, that's basically it, I think, about screws and nails. Feel free to drop a comment, and okay, that's gonna be it for me. So ciao, bye now. So yeah, basically, I think that's it about nailing it and screwing it. It's gonna be interesting to see how YouTube is handling the monetization of shafted screws, nailed it, screwing. So yeah, that's it, I think. Let me know if I missed something about nails and screws. I probably did. I tried not to assume that people know stuff. So once again, I probably assumed stuff that I forgot to mention. So please, if you have other follow-up questions about nails or screws, let me know. Okay, so have a great Sunday and see you next week, I hope. Ciao, bye now. All about reference to big cow. It's Elroy's father. Anyway, first of all, this. So, a lot of editing on this one. Take 2. Nails and screws. Cut. So yeah, I think that's it.
Coffee, oh, your spirit shines bright. Each sip's my heart beats. Do. Coffee, you fill up my dew.